Good morning again, Chair, board members, Chief Operating Officer, staff, and members of the public. As indicated before, a few regular housekeeping rules for remote meetings in order to minimize background interference, and as a courtesy to your colleagues, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices and mute all microphones on your computer, iPad, unless you're speaking. I will take a formal roll call. Please say here or present. Chair.
Here.
Vice Chair Gonzalez.
Here.
Member Adams.
Here.
Noting for the record that Member Austin is absent. Member Gavin.
Here.
Member Gawob.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. And Chief Operating Officer Vito.
Present.
Thank you so much. Chair, there are two members of the public wishing to provide comments. Ixa Torres, President and Executive Board Member of Alfred E. Smith Houses Resident Association, commenting on contractors' payments. And Joshua David Lloyd from Green New Hope, commenting on item number 4. Can someone please connect Ms. Torres?
Madam Secretary, the two potential speakers have not signed in.
Okay. As a result, Chair, there are no members of the public who registered. They're not present to provide comments. Perhaps we will take them out of turn to the extent they
Yes.
they call in, before we end the meeting.
Yes.
such-
If they do call in, I'd like to make sure we can accommodate them. So.
Thank you. So we will proceed with the regular calendar. The first order of business is to adopt the minutes of the board meeting, the regular board meeting of Wednesday, December 15th. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Gavin.
Seconded by
Second.
Vice Chair.
Victor.
All in
Vice Chair.
favor? Thank you.
Aye.
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 And none opposed. Thank you so much. The Chair, would you like to provide any remarks, comments?
Yeah, I'd like to first off thank all the board members today for another year. And I wanted to acknowledge particularly at the start of this conversation, Matt's contribution. I know Matt is going to be coming off the board, and I wanted him to know how much we valued the time, the commitment, his careful approach, and I hope at some point when we are all able to be together, we'll invite him back and we can actually have a meeting of the current and former board members during this time so that we can sort of celebrate our work together. Matt, I did not know if you had any comments or wanted to make any comments, but I just wanted you to know how deeply appreciated your service has been at a really difficult time, actually. So I didn't know if you wanted to say anything before we got into my report or not.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just be very brief, but I appreciate that. I wanted to tell you what a privilege it's been, and I'm proud of the work that we've begun together, and I appreciate everything that you've done. The fellow board members, been a pleasure to work with. The NYCHA staff, and sort of particularly Jacqueline, Vilma, Mariella, and the folks in that office always appreciated everything that they did to support the board's work. So thank you to everyone there. Wishing you absolutely the best of luck. And I really do hope we can get together. That sounds wonderful. And anything that I can do personally to continue to support the authority and the board, I'd love to be able to do that. And just thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to serve.
Thanks so much, Matt. And I just wanted to let the fellow board members know that appointments are aware of this, and we hope to have a replacement candidate shortly. So we won't be down going into the January meeting. A couple of things to apprise the board of. We do not have federal funding. We don't know what's going to happen to the Build Back Better bill, if it will be restored in some way, if it's finally finished. And I'm going to advise the board that we will be going back to the residents and back to the State Assembly and the Senate. We want to reinvigorate our ideas around the Preservation Trust as a method to raise money. And potentially, depending on what happens in DC, it could be the only method that we have to raise money. So we have not abandoned this idea. We hope that there's something that does come from Washington. We can't see that far ahead. I think it's pretty murky right now. But the trust, I think, would give us a chance to do what it's designed to do, which is protect resident rights, raise funding to invest in the properties, which is much needed, and also help with the construction of a reconstruction of our sites. I would also say that as we look at the work that NYCHA has, we continue on 2 tracks into the new year. There's going to be significant changes and reforms in the organization. These are still coming up. The transformation plan that was drafted earlier this year and concurred in by HUD and the Southern District is going to continue. We're going to continue to retool the business relationships, make additional changes at the site levels, the neighborhood levels, and in the boroughs, and change the relationship among the various departments, particularly the support departments and the properties. That work is going to continue whether we get capital funding or not, but we believe that if NYCHA is to succeed, we need to do both this internal reorganization and restructuring, and we need to get the capital. The second thing I would say is that while we have had good conversations with the state, and we've had transition conversations with the city, we have no sign yet from the state that additional funding is forthcoming. We hope it is, but we will have to wait and see what the state budget looks like before we can say with any certainty whether any additional state funds would be coming our way, or other kinds of potentially procurement relief or those kinds of things. The state is aware of our requests on this side, on both these sides, and we've made them aware of that. We are also anticipating the transition with the new mayor. We have met with the transition team, and we're hopeful that once there's an announcement around housing, that we'll begin to engage there as well. The city money that is committed to NYCHA is committed through the HUD agreement. So that is embedded in that document. And the question is, going forward, are there other things that we align ourselves with or not, depending on how the city sees it? So it is a time of significant change. And we're going to be looking at some of that change today when we look to the initial request to HUD for the rental assistance demonstration. We are now on track as we go through the next series of rounds. We by next year we'll have issued round 12, and we'll be approaching 35,000 units converted. So that's a remarkable accomplishment considering the misinformation around RAD and the difficulties of even putting these deals together and making these transactions workable. So we have another new year in front of us, and we have another set of initiatives that will affect the organization, and we'll have another set of initiatives around trying to raise the capital funding. I do want to say, as I've said before, the capital is absolutely essential to fix what is ailing our buildings. In some cases, we're seeing more and more riser leaks, both on the heat and water and hot water sides. That's not a good sign. It is harder to do simple repairs because of the complexities involved in either environmental issues, particularly, for example, asbestos, but also lead and mold. And we are able to provide, as you'll see in the budget today, a budget that puts us in a decent position for next year. But we need the capital to start to kick in sooner rather than later. And we're going to need to be aggressive in pursuit of that capital. I want to thank all the board members on the call today, though, for your support, your good questions, and the chance to serve together. And I want to wish the board and all the staff on the call a Happy New Year. And then I'll stop if there's any questions from other board members on any particular item before we go into the agenda. Thank you.
Just one thing, Vice Chair Gonzalez. How you doing, Greg? Welcome back.
Good, Victor. Thank you.
The monies that you mentioned right before you mentioned the new mayor's transition team, that money is ours to utilize as we see fit. And his transition will not affect that monies in any way, will it?
The money that's in the agreement is subject to an action plan that was approved by the monitor and HUD. So, and the Southern District. So that's locked down into the categories. Yeah. So that's already done.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's in place. OMB is aware of it. That plan, for example, includes comp mod at St. Nicholas and Todd Hill, for example. But it also includes money for lead and waste management and elevators and heating plants. So that money's there and it's been defined. So yes, that money is fixed.
That's the only question I have. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, Greg.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. So there's old saying, it's not what you get, but what you do with it. So my question is there a priority if anybody gives us $10? Like, do you have something proposed? I understand that the Titanic issues that we have with the conversions and some of the build back stuff, these are Titanic issues, but we have to keep the lifeboats and have more of them and afloat until we get the bigger things done, like day-to-day stuff, maybe getting a few more people hired, maybe adding a few pennies to get people to come in and do coverages, the little things to keep the, the lifeboats. The big ship is going to be the focus. I understand that. And
Sure.
I'm all for that, but we have to have lifeboats because there are people falling off the ship a little bit. And some
So
of them
the operating budget is the place where we've tried to make sure that some of that happens. I think we have tried to really it was difficult this year because we had so many new needs, most of them really worthy. That budget reflects some of what you're talking about. We prioritized compliance. We prioritized some of the staffing changes we want to make, not all of them, but some. And we're going to continue, for example, with work order reforms and a number of the transformation plan initiatives. But we're also going to continue to fund the things we have to do for basic services. I'm hopeful that we can have discussions with whoever over. The one problem we face with the operating budget is the rent collection, which has really tailed off in a very significant way. And that impacts us immediately because it lowers our total overall income, no matter what subsidy we get from who. So that's an issue we'll have to grapple with. But the operating budget does reflect some of what you're talking about and does reflect some additional items in the areas that you referenced. I also want to say to the secretary that Aixa Torres is texting me saying she's been trying to get on to the meeting. If someone could reach out to her and then we could have her comments.
Okay, thank you. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, we're trying to assist. We're trying to assist.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But Joe, I know we do take that to heart because we have to fix the things that we have. I want to acknowledge, honestly, for a lot of the staff, I think there's a general underestimate of how difficult some of these repairs have become. I'm not saying we can't do a better job scheduling. I understand the complaints that residents have sent to us when we don't show up. But we are in a situation where some of the things that seem so straightforward turn out to be much more complicated because of the condition of the buildings. And I want to acknowledge that the staff of the organization, the operating staff, among others, support departments, especially for operations, deal with this on a routine basis. And these are not easy repairs. We went through a series of repairs last week that I followed very carefully. It's really kind of remarkable to see the labor that goes into this. That's not an easy answer for a lot of people. I understand that, but I do want to say that the operating budget represents a good attempt to keep that level of commitment going. I'm hopeful that there'll be other funding next year, which is why the budget looks the way it looks. Just like we had some additional funding this year, I believe it's possible we'll be accessing additional money. And Joe, if we do, it would go into that operating budget to make sure that we can kind of keep the services where they need to be.
Okay, just keep, I guess, just keep things like what you did with those implementing the coverages to keep those troublesome boiler systems. Like I was monitoring them. So I would just have to say out of 60 going on 45 days, we might have had one outage, but we've had somebody here to respond to just flip the switch,
Okay.
That's extremely helpful.
No,
And
I understand.
they're under buildings like ours. And when you say operating, those are our lifeboats. So until y'all get the other stuff, worked out, just, put a wheelbarrow over there for us. That's, so that's it.
Thank you. Paula,
Thank you.
your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Let me make sure I'm on. Yeah, thank you so much. And Chair, thank you for your leadership, and the entire staff, which I just have to comment, are so responsive and so determined and committed. So I just want to say thank you. On the note, though, that we were just talking about, I was pleased when Anika went over the budget that we are addressing the backlog and trying to look for ways to correct the backlog of work orders. So I just wanted to comment on that, but in a way that just emphasizes the importance of really thinking about how to clear that backlog. So just thanks to everybody, but a commentary on the importance of clearing the backlog.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll proceed with any member of the public who's available to call in now. Host?
Yes, Mr. Joshua Lloyd is on the line.
Okay, and are we working on Aixa?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Lloyd, unmute your phone so we can hear you.
Mr. Lloyd, are you on?
He unmuted himself. Mr. Lloyd?
host, is he on but just muted? Like what is the technical issue?
He is on, but he's not speaking. He unmuted himself.
Can IT assist, please?
Is Ms. Torres on? Could we go to her and then come back?
Right. Host, is Ms. Torres on?
Ms. Torres is not on as of yet. I will notify you when she is on.
Okay. I hate to keep a member of the public waiting, but Chair, with your approval, I will proceed to at least item 1.
Please. Yeah, let's get what we can and then we can come back once we have a connection.
Okay. We'll proceed to the calendared items 1 through 15, beginning with item 1. Angela.
Hi, good morning. I'm Angela Gatson, Vice President for Bronx Management Department. Good morning, Madam Secretary, board members, and colleagues. I will be presenting item number 1 for your consideration. Authorization is requested to ratify a contract capacity increase to this requirement contract awarded to Richards Plumbing and Heating Company Incorporated. This requirement contract provides for plumbing maintenance. The scope of the work includes, but is not limited to, furnishing all labor, materials, equipment, and incidentals required to perform general plumbing maintenance for the repair and or replacement of defective plumbing parts associated with boilers, hot water heaters, heat exchangers, pumps, boiler room plumbing systems, and tank room plumbing systems. The contract term is from December 7th, 2020 through December 6th, 2023. The contract number is 201-6511, and it's for various citywide developments. The cost estimate is $3,250,000. The budget is funding type is operating, and the source is federal. Richards Plumbing has indicated on its Section 3 hiring that it intends to hire 1 laborer. That concludes my presentation for item number 1.
Are there any questions on item 1?
Yes, just one quick one. So you said that they are hiring 1 new projected Section 3. Is this in addition to other hirees prior to this? Being that this is already in the works and it's been working already, and we're just trying to increase the capacity. So were there other Section 3 hirees prior to this one?
Can anyone from Reese answer that question?
Lenise Vergara from Reese. Yes, so the 1 projection on a capacity increase here is based on the additional dollars, not based on the entire contract amount. So yes, so it's in addition to previous projections.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
There are no additional questions. Thank you, Angela. Before we move on to item 2, is there any member of the public available to speak?
Mr. Lloyd is on, and I've asked him to unmute his phone.
Okay, it's fine. I'm not sure what that meant. Mr. Lloyd, are you on? Joshua Lloyd, are you on the phone? Okay, we'll proceed with item number 2.
Thank you. Just hoping we
Sorry,
can.
Daphne. I was looking, I'm sorry, Daphne. Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Just hoping we can pull up the map for Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea. Okay, I see it now. Thank you. Good morning and happy holidays. My name is Daphne Rubin Vega, a director in NYCHA's Real Estate Development Department, and I'm happy to present item number 2 for your consideration. On April 23rd, 2021, the authority issued a request for proposals for the Permanent Affordability Commitment Together, known as Pact, conversion and comprehensive rehabilitation of the authority's public housing.
Daphne, you're going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Okay. Chelsea houses consisting of 425 units, Elliott consisting of 589 units, and Fulton consisting of 944 units, collectively referred to in this presentation as the properties. Accordingly, authorization is requested to submit initial rental assistant demonstration applications to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development in connection with the planned Pact conversion from public housing to project-based Section 8 funding for these 4 developments. In December of 2018, the New York City Mayor's Office and the Authority released NYCHA 2.0, a comprehensive plan to preserve public housing, which includes Pact. Through Pact, the authority plans to convert approximately 62,000 residential units over 10 years from public housing to project-based Section 8 housing. Under Pact, the authority enters into public-private partnerships with developers, general contractors, property managers, and social service providers to raise funds, complete seriously needed capital work, more efficiently oversee day-to-day operations, and enhance the delivery of on-site social services. The authority has incorporated robust resident protections required by HUD and by New York City's Pact RAD roundtable guiding principles into the Pact program. In October 2019, the Chelsea NYCHA Working Group was established to research, evaluate, and recommend strategies to address the capital needs of the properties. The working group was made up of a group of residents, area elected officials and their staff, community board 4 members, staff from NYCHA and the mayor's office, and affordable housing and legal advocates. The working group's report was released in February. And the Pact conversion that is the subject of this presentation. In addition to the working group, NYCHA has held regular consultation with the resident associations, hosted virtual and in-person community meetings in multiple languages, attended community events, conducted surveys and inspections, and distributed information about the authority's plans. On November 30th, 2021, the authority and resident leaders introduced the selected development partner to the wider community, and the rollout has been well received by the resident leaders, area elected officials, and the housing advocates who contributed to and supported the working group process from the beginning. In the coming weeks, the formal design process will be kicked off to help shape Pact and other investment strategies at the properties. In the new year, information sessions will continue to be hosted about the Section 8 program, resident rights and protections, and the design and construction process. The authority will now submit a series of applications to HUD in order to receive approval to convert the properties to Section 8, project-based voucher financing under Pact. First, HUD requires that the authority submit RAD applications for the properties. Following review and selection of the RAD applications, HUD will provide the authority with a commitment to enter into a housing assistant payment contract known as the CHAP. Once the CHAP is issued, HUD will invite the authority to submit a RAD financing plan that provides detailed information about the project's financing, resident and political outreach, and scope of work. The authority also anticipates submitting Section 18 applications to HUD for some or all of the properties, which enables the project to receive higher levels of subsidy from HUD and supports a more comprehensive scope of repairs. Subject to ongoing due diligence, the authority may elect to submit only a RAD application or only a Section 18 application for one or more of the properties to maximize the available amount of subsidy. Additional detail on the project, including a summary of the proposed Pact partner team, financing, resident engagement, and Section 3 hiring. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I received your the response in regards to housing for the disabled people. That if I read the response correctly, upon the request or need of individuals coming in, certain things would be done, like convert the apartments to be applicable for them. But I'm just wondering, from a budget standpoint, usually a number of apartments are usually already allocated because special things are needed, special alarms. Some units have special ovens that help assist in their cleaning, verify higher toilet seating. So in the budgeting and the initial conversations, wouldn't it be helpful to say, you know, we have 6 units? I'm gonna give an example, or 3 or 5 units. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any anticipation that disabled people are expected to apply. In most of the affordable housing, there's even mention of that in the disclaimers that they advertise with, that units, they have the symbol. Just going forward, I'm just saying it would be helpful, at least from my perspective, for me, to see that there's some anticipation that there is some dialogue, conversation, or planning for people with special needs coming into some elements like this that you're doing. It seems like it's, instead of proactive, it's reactive. You know, it's disabled people have always been considered to be invisible. They're not in the initial conversations when considered for good things like this that's happening. But I guess it's not an issue. I received the response, but going forward, from my perspective, it would be good that at least there was a conversation about it. Thank you.
Board Member Adams, I believe that question was in response to the next board item, number 3. So just wanted to note that.
Okay. Well, I'm off.
Hi, it's Greg. Joe, I do want to say any substantial construction work that is undertaken through this process has to meet Section 504 requirements, which include 5% of the units are accessible on an approachable route and that kind of thing, and 2% of the units are available for hearing and vision impaired. And those requirements are not lifted by the RAD program. So when the development team is looking at the work that they have to do in the units, in addition to any individual accommodations that they may have to make over time, there's a fundamental requirement imposed by the level of construction that we would have to meet as well.
Okay. Did I miss that in any initial paperwork?
No, it's probably not called out per se in the summaries that are provided, but it is part of the RAD program. And it would also, for example, apply to us at St. Nicholas. When we're doing that with non-RAD funds, we would trigger the same requirements. So,
Okay.
yeah, so there is, I guess, a baseline set of requirements that exist kind of irrespective of the source of funding. And we would be looking to meet those either through the RAD program, comp mod, or other sources.
Okay, well, your response only took up 4 sentences. You think maybe in some of the future paperwork we could just see something to that extent?
Yeah, we could list.
I mean,
we could list something. Sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but it's there. It's not forgotten. It's actually there. It's just not. It's in the list of things we have to comply with when we do a RAD conversion.
Okay, but it would just be helpful because sometimes people have questions
Sure.
I'm a disabled person. How will this affect me when I run into them or, attend a function or something? And they, I wouldn't be able to answer it unless I saw that and say, yeah, there is going to be accommodations made for those who are applying with special needs. So we can move on. Thanks. That's all. Going forward. Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Daphne. There are no other questions on item number 2. Before we get to item 3, is Aixa Torres or Joshua Lloyd on the phone ready to comment? Host?
Mr. Lloyd dropped off. And still no connection with Ms. Torres. We're
Okay.
still assisting.
I will inquire after
I'm sorry,
every.
can she call in as opposed to, can she just call a phone number and we could patch her in somehow? Do we know if that's possible?
It's possible, Chair. I will connect with
Okay.
IT. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to have video, but if we can't let's at least get her voice. Thanks.
Okay. All right. In the interim, we'll proceed with item 3. Patrick?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Good morning, Chair, members of the board, NYCHA colleagues, members of the public. My name is Patrick Love, Senior Project Manager in the Real Estate Development Department. I'll be presenting on board item number 3 for your consideration, which is requesting to submit a Section 18 application to dispose of a 10,000 square foot parking lot, a 2,500 square foot parcel of land, and approximately 280,000 square feet of zoning floor area within Manhattanville, and upon HUD approval, convey the properties and the air rights to 1440 Residential LLC and Leftcast Realty LLC or its affiliate. By way of background, in 2019, the development team expressed interest to the authority in acquiring the development rights and the properties for the development of a residential building on an adjacent vacant parcel that is owned by the developer, located on the west side of Amsterdam Avenue between 131st and 133rd Street in Manhattan. The development site was previously home to a 1-story building with a grocery store and a laundromat that was subject to a fire in 2013 and was demolished in 2014. In addition to the air rights acquisition, the developer has requested to purchase the parking lot and the southern parcel, both owned by the authority, in order to support a larger residential development. The developer is a non-minority entity. The developer's proposed residential development, will include approximately 400 apartments, including 120 apartments pursuant to the terms of Option C of New York State's Affordable New York Program, also known as 421A, in one tower fronting Amsterdam Avenue. The footprint of the proposed residential development is set back from the nearby Manhattanville houses in accordance with the zoning resolution of the City of New York. In October 2021, the property was appraised at $28.9 million. The authority expects to receive approximately $28 million in total proceeds from this transaction from the developer. The offer for the property is $900,000 less than the appraised value because the developer will replace all 28 parking spots in the existing parking lot in a temperature-controlled secure parking structure in the proposed residential development, as well as provide approximately 1,000 square feet of community space for use by residents of Manhattanville in the proposed residential development, a rental preference to authority residents for approximately 30 affordable apartments pursuant to Option C of New York State's Affordable New York Program, also known as 421A, and an agreement to work with the authority's Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability Department in providing authority residents with job training and employment opportunities. A Section 3 hiring plan is not required as this project will be on a privately owned site. The proposed disposition of the properties, as well as the air rights as documented in the 2020 Public Housing Authority Plan, was vetted by the Resident Advisory Board pursuant to HUD's regulations governing disposition of the property. Prior to the submission of the Section 18 application, the authority has presented the proposed disposition to residents of the Resident Association of Manhattanville and the authority's citywide council of residents, and has obtained a letter of support from the New York City Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development. The authority will continue to consult with residents in Manhattanville in developing a program for capital improvements with the proceeds and seek HUD's approval before implementation. Therefore, it is recommended that the members authorize the chair, chief operating officer, or their respective designees to execute any and all documents necessary to submit the Section 18 application to HUD, and then upon HUD approval, convey the property and the properties and the air rights in accordance with the authority's bylaws. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
All I have is a, Patrick, all I have is a comment. I haven't been able to wrap my head around the actual geography of the area that you're talking about. I may have to just take a trip up there and remind myself of what it used to look like. All this work that you're talking about actually takes place on the western side of Amsterdam Avenue, correct?
Exactly.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay, I'll have to, I mean, I'm going through with it, but I'll have to go see and check it for myself. All right, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Patrick, good morning. Thank you for submitting the response about the accommodating apartment issue. And as the chair alluded to, most things of this nature have something embedded that states that there will be consideration given in the nice presentation you just did about parking lot spaces, and that going forward, it would be nice to hear some mention of what those people who have challenges would probably be included in if possible. I'm saying going forward, not today. You submitted the proper response and everything like that. And just for board member Gonzalez, that's 4 blocks up from Twin Donut on the right side, I believe, the area you're talking about. If you know where that, I know you know where that is, I believe. So that's the area, right, Patrick?
Yeah, the area has changed some, because I do remember on West 133rd Street, before it gets to Broadway, there's a little street called Old Broadway that hits, and it has like a little turn in for about 3 or 4 blocks, and then it shows up on Broadway and 126th Street. So that's on the other side of the development. Though on the front, there are right across the street from that 1-story building, there's a school and a church. The school is on the Amsterdam side, but the church is on the convent side, which is the back side of it. So that's why I'm having a problem wrapping my head around where they're going to put this building and still remain with the 28 parking spots. I would have to take a trip up there and see it myself.
Okay.
Great. Are there any other questions for Patrick? No, if not, thank you very much, Patrick. And I understand that Mr. Lloyd is back on the phone, ready to comment on item number 4.
It says, it says, I'm ready, I'm unmuted now. I don't know if people can hear me. Can people hear me?
We can hear you. Please
Okay, so
proceed.
people can
Thank
hear
you.
me, and I'm on the phone with you, so I'm gonna turn you down. Bye. Bye. So can you see me too?
Your photo of
No.
you.
This is so messed up.
Please just proceed. Thank you.
Can I talk now? Is that just Joshua Lloyd?
Yes, you may, Mr. Lloyd.
I wish you could see me because it makes a difference, but whatever. So I don't know if people can hear me. Can people hear me? We can. So people can hear me. So I'm gonna there's total feedback. It's so weird. Let me log back on because this is gonna drive everyone insane the way it's doing. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna try to get on.
Mr. Lloyd, do not log off. I will mute everybody else. Continue speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so I'm still speaking. Are you hearing me okay now? Or is there echo? I wish you
The
could.
echo is from him, not from anyone else.
So, I don't know if people can.
If he's also watching himself, he's gonna get back that feed.
What do you mean? I'm on just one place.
Now you want two.
There's another microphone picking you up somewhere.
Right.
Okay, just a second, just a second. I'll figure it out.
Everybody else continue speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so I'm still speaking. Are you hearing me okay now, or is there echo?
The echo is from him, not from anyone else.
This is not.
If he's also watching himself, he's gonna get back that feed.
Yeah, I should get back because this is crazy. Let me get back in touch with I don't want to drive everyone crazy. You'll just eventually, I'll log back on again. Thank you.
Another microphone
Okay.
picking you up somewhere.
Okay, just a second.
Is Aixa Torres on the line yet?
Not as of
We're
yet.
working on Aixa. We have a different number that we're trying to communicate with her on.
Okay, so let's proceed with item 4, which is actually the item that Mr. Lloyd is going to comment on. So let's hear that presentation now. Jillian?
Great. Good morning. My name is Jillian Connell, and I'm the Managing Director of Business Operations for the Real Estate Development Department. And this morning, I'm presenting item number 4, relating to legal and consulting services for real estate law and real estate development. Specifically, I'm requesting authorization to enter into retainer agreements with 8 law firms for legal and consulting services regarding real estate law and real estate development matters, with agreements targeted to commence on January 1st, 2022, and continuing through December 31st, 2026, which includes an initial 3-year term and 2 one-year renewal options. In terms of background, to realize NYCHA's plans to rehabilitate existing public housing units, expand low-income housing opportunities for New Yorkers, the Real Estate Development Department, in conjunction with the Law Department's Real Estate and Economic Development Division, are undertaking complex real estate development, financial, and leasing transactions that are expected to involve discretionary land use actions, environmental analyses, innovative tax or funding structures, and governmental regulatory approvals. And they require advice and services from outside counsel to handle a portion of these real estate activities. So to procure these services, NYCHA issued an RFP in May 2021 with responses due on June 20th, 2021. 16 proposals were received and reviewed by an RFP evaluation committee consisting of members from the Real Estate Development Department and the Legal Affairs Real Estate Economic Development Division and the Supply Management and Procurement Department. The committee evaluated proposals based on the following criteria: qualifications, expertise and experience, availability and capability of the team, financial and organizational stability, and the cost proposal. And based on the ratings of the proposals by the RFP evaluation committee, the Real Estate Development Department recommends that NYCHA enter into retainer agreements with the following 8 firms: Amato Law Group, Ballard Spahr, Brian Cave Leeton Paisner, Herrick Feinstein, Klein Hornig, Mincer Mach, Nixon Peabody, and Reno and Kavanaugh. The combined 5-year cost of all 8 retainer agreements shall not exceed $25 million. And we're seeking to establish a collective not to exceed amount instead of individual not to exceed amounts, which would allow NYCHA flexibility to avail itself of specific practice areas of legal services as needed. And upon requesting services from any of these law firms, NYCHA would establish a not to exceed amount specific to the services requested. Vendor name checks have been requested, and there would be no award until a vendor name check is issued, and there is no issue found to preclude the award. So I'm happy to take any questions about this request.
Yes, Adams, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah. So can you just give me like 1 or 2 examples of what their services will be helpful with the agency's law department? I know there's some type of difference. I'm just trying to, get some type of picture of when we use their services, like what they would do that's out of the capacity of the law people that we have at the agency to do.
Sure. So they assist with the various real estate transactions primarily, and provide, various pieces of advice and guidance, sort of in a supplementary manner to that which the law department provides, really expanding and amplifying the capacity. And they also bring, particular subject matter expertise, which relates to land use and zoning. They assist with things like, in certain instances, commercial leasing, and also have the capability in some instances to assist with various environmental review related matters.
Okay, so with the transformation with RAD and Pact, do we have people like this doing this work also? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, they're involved with our Pact transactions intimately.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions. Thank you, Jillian. But just please stay on call just in case, because we have a
Yeah.
speaker that's coming up. Mr. Lloyd, are you on the phone?
Hello.
I am on Zoom. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please proceed with your comments on item number 4.
Okay, so I want to comment on this issue and the chair's original commentary. Just a second, Lisa. Lisa, can you stop doing it now? I'm on the phone. Stop with the water. So I want to have a review of these choice of lawyers for real estate issues. And the reason is that Green New Hope is environmental concern in the area. And what we're seeing at the East River Park construction is that the city has been not abiding by its own agreements. Like that, for example, they did construction during a work or a temporary restraining order stopping it. And the NYCHA has had legal advice, for example, to continue to just support this current East River Park project through their own legal department. And what we are feeling is that the legal advice that NYCHA has been given by its lawyers are not always in the benefit of its members. And this is a good example. And the amount of money, 25 million over 5 years, is a tremendous amount of money. And what we want to see is that these lawyers are actually not connected to developers, because there's a strong desire to develop the NYCHA area, that we would like to have a review of the these lawyers, because it's a tremendous amount of money. There's a lot of like light bulbs that aren't working, and there seems like a misallocation without more explanation why each firm is listed and why they actually support, especially the minority element within NYCHA. And Green New Hope is attempting to contact like the people that live in the area to help them become more involved with the NYCHA board meetings. And I don't feel like I'm seeing everyone on the list, but it's confusing how this board meeting is so, the percentage is so white compared to the population of NYCHA, which is much more mixed. So we really feel that there is a misguided element that we could improve upon, and the board clearly cares. But I believe that there are other elements that are happening that block, for example, the East River Park, raising the park 8 feet will mean that if there's a storm that's higher, that's 16 feet, like what is happening, that water would breach the park and end up flooding NYCHA again, but the water could not retreat at the end of the surge. When Sandy came, the surge ended, and 10 hours later, all the water retreated except for what's stuck in basements. And what we're finding is the city's created a presentation of engineering without any coastal resilience expertise. But the NYCHA lawyers have been kind of gone along with this, and Carlina Rivera has gone along with this. So we really feel like there's a mistake on the law. And the proof of it is that the city just continued cutting trees for 8 days during a temporary restraining order, that there are developmental forces at play that really just need some exploration. And I would like to suggest a committee form to really look into this. I think I've talked for more than 3 minutes, but I'm wondering if people could respond to this concern. And I'm glad that it's listed in the transcript, because I would like to hear your understanding as well.
Okay.
This is Greg. All of these attorneys are directed to RAD and Pact deals. The conversion of our units, to the extent there's environmental requirements related to that conversion process, we're obligated to meet those. But the broader environmental and coastal issues you described aren't necessarily connected to the work that these firms would be doing. They would be focused on helping us manage the real estate transaction, like the one that we just had earlier for Fulton and Chelsea, and other RAD and Pact deals that are coming along. So I think in some ways their expertise is more focused on a specific conversion of a property as opposed to the broader issue that you raised. If Jonathan, if you're on, or Jillian, if you want to comment beyond that, please feel free.
Sure. I would just say you're correct, Greg. The selections that we have made and are seeking approval for are tied to transactional work, specifically around the preservation of existing buildings and developments. It is in no way tied to the East River Park and the flood mitigation strategies that are being contemplated by the city.
Can I reply? Can you hear me? Can I reply?
Yes, with a quick response, sir, because comments are limited to 3 minutes. I didn't give you, so please comment quickly.
My point in bringing up the East River Park coastal resiliency is to use it as an analogy that the best interest of NYCHA residents may clearly not have been kept in account in this instance, and that what we feel is that in this other instance about development within NYCHA and the choice of the lawyers for the $25 million over 5 years, which is $5 million a year, that we think that there may be a chance that these lawyer teams are also perhaps not only with NYCHA residents as their benefit. So I understand clearly that you feel that this issue is in total isolation to other legal issues. I understand that point, but I really am asking for a committee to be formed. I'm gonna, if I can, make a motion that a committee be formed to further explore the legal teams before this decision is made. I think that the NYCHA residents have due this further legal advice. And I use the example that the East River Park might actually be incredibly detrimental to NYCHA because it's not really protecting Sandy type storms as an example that this is very important that NYCHA have legal advice that really supports it. So that's my motion, is for a committee to be formed to just explore these teams before it is just ratified. I understand that you have these different groups that are in on this, but we're asking for a review that includes members of the NYCHA population, and Green New Hope would certainly be willing to participate as we're capable. Can someone respond to that? I understand.
Yeah, no, I will respond. First off, you know, we're the board members can make various motions and so forth. The public cannot. But secondly, in the rental assistance demonstration rounds, and there are rounds of these, we are now providing that residents can secure, and we will pay for, their own technical or legal advice when it comes to these transactions. So residents will now have access in each specific instance of conversion to technical or legal assistance if they feel the need for it. So that is, you know, that is one of the ways that we'll have residents have the opportunity to gain their own support for this. So even though this particular resolution is about legal advice for NYCHA, we are accommodating residents and providing their own legal advice if they so desire it going forward.
Yeah, good morning, Greg. Great.
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So I have a question. So the people that will be eventually running these properties after we do all of this legal work and transferring them to them, and a lot of these private entities are literally stumbling over each other to get their hands on the properties to, to help us convert them. I'm just curious, can they concur some of the cost of doing business like this? I mean, they literally are stumbling over each other to get their hands on the properties.
Well, they're first, remember, we're leasing, we're not selling. That's important. But secondly, yes, part of the evaluation when we look at a development team is what are they proposing to do with the site? What contributions are they bringing to the properties in exchange for the benefits that they may receive over time? So that evaluation of sort of what is the financial component of this is made through Jonathan's team. And I don't know, Jonathan, if you wanted to add anything to that or not, but we do take that into account.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I'm asking a question. Like
and I think if I understood your question, Board Member Adams, I mean, there are certain costs that we seek to have reimbursed through the deal. So some of the costs with the legal work and other experts that we bring in are covered through the deal. But there are some costs that are inherently going to be NYCHA costs. So this is just giving us the flexibility over the next 5 years to have a deep bench of expertise to advise us on the technical aspects of our deal. This is not about getting policy advice from our attorneys. We adopt our own policies in the interest of our residents and in our developments. This is technical expertise to help close transactions.
Okay, so simply, we're going to give them our $25, and then they'll probably give it back $12.50 or $15 or something like that.
It will depend on each transaction, Joe.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. I mean, in some transactions we earn fees. Some of those fees would offset costs. It's just going to depend on what happens with each of the real estate.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. That's it. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Mr. Lloyd, thank you for your comments.
Madam Secretary, Ms. Torres is on the line.
Oh. Thank you. Ms. Torres?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning and welcome. You would like to comment on the general subject of contractors. Hello?
Right.
Yes.
What I want to comment on is that there has to be a way where residents or the resident leadership can comment on the productivity and the final work of the contractor, because clearly there's a total disconnect on what we consider quality and work well done. And I just don't understand how some contractors continue to get contracted, and they feel they don't have to have a conversation with the residents or the resident leadership. And at least in Smith houses, I can speak for the residents because I clearly listen to the residents. We have committees that function and work. And I have found that the best contractors have been those who have been willing to sit down with the residents and have conversations about what our needs are and what we need. This is not happening. And we're having a serious health issue across the board in Smith for two reasons: 9/11 and the pandemic, COVID. And so I seriously like to know, how do we, besides sending emails and having consultations that don't really do anything for us, that a contractor continues to get contracted and there's like no report card. And I am really tired of having conversations about how contractors are doing a lousy job. there's got to be a better medium. I clearly, that's why 964 says that we're supposed to be part of the process from conception. And I would hope that in this new transition that we're doing, that the residents will have some kind of say on who the contractor is that's coming to work in our development. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Torres, it's Greg. I will ask both procurement and capital to talk with you on doing that, because you have a really complicated Sandy project going on there, and getting that feedback is part of the intent in terms of reforming how we look at procurement. And going forward for our more comprehensive modernizations, we are going to include residents when we select vendors as part of the evaluation process.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Torres. Thank you, Chair. Now, we may proceed.
Hi,
Member Gonzalez,
yes.
Vice Chair
Uh,
Gonzalez.
I had been muted without me knowing, and I was trying to get in on the end of number 4 with Jillian. I think it's Jillian Connell.
Yes.
Okay, because I had something that I was concerned about, and that is in the section where it says projected section 3 hires labor hours, and it says pending vendor revision. Okay, so that tells me that you don't know what the hiring process is going to be until after the project begins. Is that a good assessment?
So there's 8 firms that we've selected. And actually 6 of them have confirmed what their Section 3 plan looks like. And we're actually pending revision of 2 of them. What they've all indicated is that they don't anticipate needing to do or make additional hires pursuant to this contract award. And so therefore they've instead proposed other economic opportunities.
So that's telling me they're not going to take any Section 3 hires.
But Victor, they are going to provide other options that we can use that could lead to someone getting qualified to do something else. Or the other economic opportunities include everything from training to sponsorships to all kinds of things that would fulfill the requirement.
Okay, so moving forward, I mean, I'm just going to go with this, but I would like a follow-up as to what those benefits will be in writing, so that I can get a better understanding of what these revisions are going to be and how it would benefit us as a whole.
We can do that.
Okay.
And hello, Adams. Yeah, great. And yeah,
Member Adams, before you begin, Vice Chair Gonzalez, I just wanted you to know that the item was revised from the last time that you saw it, I believe. 2 of the firms do have projected Section 3 labor hours. Okay, so Amato, for example, has 500 Section 3 projected labor hours, in addition to supplies and materials, other economic opportunities, purchase of supplies and materials. Ballard Spar, their other economic opportunities would be technical support and consulting sessions. Brian Cave, loans, scholarships, or grants. Klein Hornig, 187.5 projected Section 3 labor hours, in addition to loans, scholarships, or grants. Mensa Morch, an internship in an environmental law clerk will be hired. Nixon Peabody, other economic opportunities, a legal intern. In addition to that, Herrick and Feinstein and Reno and Kavanaugh do have projected Section 3 labor hours, but those are the 2 that are being revised, that needs to be pending revision.
And
So
that
I hope
information is in the in the thing we can look at?
Yes, it's in the, I'm not sure where we are on this, Mariella, but it was in the last draft that I looked at. So you should have it. It should have been sent to you late yesterday. And it's still being revised, because right now that information is only in the briefing, but it will be in the resolution as I requested late yesterday.
Okay, so I apologize for taking up the time. I didn't read that part, the new part that was sent yesterday. I
It's
just
okay.
got on today. So if anything, I will read through it, and everything sounds lovely. But we'll see towards the end what in fact is the bottom line
Okay.
with
All
those
right.
revisions. Okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
All
Member
right, thank you.
Adams, I
Yeah,
interrupted you.
Yeah, just quickly, going forward, because we're looking to finish business today, support this stuff. So just going forward, can some of these things just be mentioned briefly in the initial resolution, like a brief, just touch on it briefly, like what Greg explained briefly about the benefits, and that somebody might chip in $10 and just something, just give it more of a window to look through. That's all going forward. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Member Adams. And if we're done with item number 4, thank you very much, Jillian. And we will now proceed, Steve, with items 5 through 12. But Steve, as you know, you will first move 4 CPD reports into the record. These reports were previously provided to the board. Steve?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Good morning. My name is Stephen Lovesey, Executive Vice President for Capital Projects Division. CPD will be presenting to the board items number 5 through 12. And at this point in time, Capital would like to enter into the records our spend rate for November 2021 and our temporary suspension reports for the elevator modernization contracts, the heating plant contracts, and the waste management contracts. I'm available to answer any questions.
If you had to, Steve, if you had to guess, because one of your pet ones was the waste management, do you have any type of feeling when any of these things might be reinstated? Because, they are part of the, arteries of blood that are the day-to-day operation. So I understand that they have to be stopped, halted. I think that's what you're trying to tell me, right? They have to be halted, or we just going, or did I misread it on
Yeah, nothing is being halted. In fact, in the waste management plan, we've illustrated an accelerated plan.
Oh, okay.
In order to actually work those forward faster. These are, we've suspended the board resolution. And so we're providing quarterly reports to you on changes to those contracts at this point in time. Similar to what we had done with the with the weatherization program.
All right, you continue, sorry.
No worries.
Member
One
Adams?
last thing.
Okay, proceed, Victor, proceed.
One last thing that I would like to know. I understand that most of these things, when they're shared with the residents and any new processes that are going on with this, I know that they're distributed in every language. Now, the other question is what about signing? Hand gesture sign? If people have questions that they sign regarding any of these projects or paperwork that they have to sign, and I mean sign signature, is that provided to the people that sign, meaning that they don't speak, that they use a manual, when you start using sign and sign in the same sentence, it gets a little convoluted. In other words, people who don't speak, that use their hands to communicate, are all of these issues explained to those that sign only? And if so, where can they go to find the information about signing?
Victor, is this question for capital, or is this a general question for all of the
It's
communications
a
in
general
NYCHA?
question on any of the things that we're doing moving forward. Whether it's the new conversions and all the legal matters that are going on and all the new paperwork that has to be refiled. So it's a general question for every aspect or every facet of NYCHA's new moving forward. Because like I said, it's been given in a lot of languages, and that's a great thing. I mean, I'm loving that. But I think that that's a population we need to also ensure that's included in these things. And if at all possible, if there are questions for those that sign, where can they, or can they have a friend contact NYCHA so that someone will be sent to explain that to them? That's the question I have.
So I'll pass this to Jacqueline, but I believe that we can, as an agency, get back to you on the different services that are provided when we have meetings, as well as informational information.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Member Gonzalez, I mean, I don't know exactly what is done in every case, but I know that the agency certainly does cater to all types of disabilities. So to the extent that you say someone signs, so that means they can still read the document, can still write emails.
Right.
And yes, to the extent that that person needs assistance with respect to contacting NYCHA verbally, I would imagine that someone else would be able to assist them in terms of verbally contacting NYCHA, and NYCHA would do whatever it needs to do in terms of having a sign language individual in the room the next time that there's a meeting, or the first time that there's a meeting with that individual who needs that assistance.
Okay.
And
All right.
anyone
That's
else
what I
on the
needed.
call who wants to add anything may, but I that is handled. Jason, thank
Yes,
you.
Madam
Jason.
Secretary, I believe the Vice Chair is referring to American Sign Language, ASL, or the TTY interfaces. If there's anyone able to comment specifically as to that. Because so those are the two primary mechanisms. Having had deaf family members, I'm well familiar with
Okay.
the assistive technology. So
Yes. And
Okay.
so, yeah, and I would say, and so as interpreters, of languages, we do provide ASL interpreters certainly at hearings and everything else that NYCHA officially does with residents and other clients.
Okay. All right. Just double checking and making sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're on the board meeting. Is he still there? No, he just.
All righty, thank you. Can everyone mute themselves, please? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to board item number 5.
Steve, before you move on to all of the items, I just want the record to reflect that the following reports: CPD spend update for November 2021, and 2, activity on the temporary suspension of prerequisite authority approvals for CPD's elevator modernization contracts, AKA EMCs, heating plant contracts, AKA HPCs, and waste management contracts, AKA WMCs, are hereby incorporated into and made a part of the record. Steve?
Thank you, Jacqueline. Capital Projects Division seeks authorization to award a contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Bayan DBA Dynamic Construction Company. This is for a trash hoist replacement with a VRC at Bayview Houses in the amount of $5,563,605. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder, MGR Restoration Inc., was deemed non-responsive for failure to submit the required bid bond as outlined in the authority's bid documents. The second lowest bidder, Jim Quality Construction, who submitted a bid which was 56% above the authority's cost estimate, declined to hold their bid price past the 120 days from the bid opening. Due to that, we moved to the third lowest bidder, who had a price of 63.14 variant between our cost estimate and their bid. Capital Projects Division's post-bid review determined that the variance is attributed to a lot of the specialized elevator trade work and the limited number of subcontractors, as well as supply chain management. But based on the analysis and speaking with our partners, the bid, although it's high, should be acceptable. Dynamic is a minority owned business and has been in operation since 2008. They have done work for Capital Projects Division, and in our evaluation system software, they have a 78.27% rating. Dynamic understands the scope of the work, and the vendor name check dated May 12th, 2021 has been vetted, and there was which found no issues to preclude this award. So for this item, we request Zuri Binyan DBA Dynamic Construction Company with a contract award amount of $5,563,605. That is 63.14% above our estimate, with 8 Section 3 hires to be awarded. If there are no questions about board item number 5, I will move on to board item number 6 and number 7. Board item number 6 and 7 are similar in concept to board item number 8 and 9, but I will present them separately because of they're 2 different contractors. Capital Projects Division seeks authorization to approve a contract capacity increase for 2 energy service agreements, or ESAs, for the implementation of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development energy performance contracts. This is with Armesco Inc. These contract capacity increases are being presented to the board because their value exceeds 10% of the original ESA value. The capacity increases are for commissioning work. All EPCs require post-construction evaluations. This is measuring and values. The original EPCs had the design and construction portion to the contract. We added the scope and capacity, which will allow us to complete the work. And we have to do this commissioning for every year of the loan, which in this case is 18 years. There are, so for board item number 8, this is contract number BL 1816486. And we are asking for, the original contract was 56 million. We're asking for a contract capacity increase of 6,938,863 to bring the revised award amount to $86,237,615.13. Board item number 7 for the same contractor is BL 1816486. The original awarded amount was $104,600,804. We're asking for a contract increase of $12,432,032. That's for a revised amount of $117,032,836. Board item number 8 and 9 are similar in concept, but these are for our other 2 EPCs, going to Constellation New Energy Inc. And again, this is a capacity increase for the commissioning or the measuring and value of the work that they have done. The 2 contracts, board item.
Steve, could I interrupt you and ask the host to please put up the correct items that are being discussed on the screen? Steve, proceed.
Yep. Board item number 8 is contract BL 1721993. The original award was $68,158,664. The amount increase is $5,407,378. This is a revised amount of $73,566,042. Board item number 9 is contract BL 1723204. The original contract amount was 43 million. The amount of increase is $4,086,561 for a revised amount of $47,086,561. If there are no questions in regards to those 4 contract increases for
Hey, Steve,
EPCs.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
it's Greg. I just wanted to, these are energy performance contracts, so we're getting the work done, but the savings is helping to defer the cost. Is that correct?
Correct. These
Yeah.
are loans through HUD, in which,
Right.
in this case, the most of the work has been completed. The measuring and valuing is identifying the energy savings. Those energy savings go back to pay for the loan.
Okay, so we're really just making sure that the amount we're spending and everything lines up across the board.
Correct. That these changes are working optimally, and that we're getting the most money out of the savings to pay off those loans.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Proceed, Steve.
Thank you, Jacqueline. If there are no other questions, I'll move on to board items number 10 through 12. Capital Projects Division.
Steve?
Yes.
With the clean energy thing, as we discussed, it's just not a total smooth process. There are bumps, and Jason used the term in the Q&A session of guarantee. He said the return and savings on the loans that are going to be taken out are guaranteed. That's the word he used. I'm not familiar with business on this level for many, many years, but a word like guarantee with the type of money and things and moving parts that we're talking about here, can you substantiate what that guarantee would be? Because there are a lot of, like I said, moving parts with this clean energy thing. There are issues there that takes money to actually run these things that you're going to set up. It depends on weather conditions. Solar and wind energy. Wind is part of this process. And it's just it's not completely entirely being used in our part of the world. I'm just saying, sometimes you can't make enough money in certain regions with this to keep it going.
Yep.
There are roadblocks, but I'm just saying.
Joe, it's Greg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just saying, but there are possible glitches when you're talking about using this type of energy. So, like I said, Jason alluded to the word guaranteed. Okay, and the only one that I remember using that word was Joe Namath in the Super Bowl, and he got lucky. But no, I'm just saying. I mean, with this type of money involved and this type of moving parts with the using energy and what it takes, that's a very strong word to use.
The guarantee refers to the ability to pay off the loan with the things that we're installing.
Right.
And a lot of the things that we're installing here are not necessarily the more exotic forms of energy that you're talking about. I mean, for example, aerators on the shower heads. So this is about saving money on the utility side, and that the energy performance contract allows us then to pay off the investment that's been made. Some of these might include those kinds of things that you're talking about, but really, and Steve, correct me if I don't have this correct, we're just talking about making sure that the loan is paid off with the savings we achieve. The method of achieving the savings, whether that's a bathroom aerator or some other energy efficiency lighting, those are the generally the kinds of things that are included in these packages. And Steve, do I have that correct or?
Yes, correct. And in regards to the board member's comment on guaranteed energy savings, these processes are all done through HUD, and there is a number of steps that we go through and approvals to make sure that the type of items that we're putting in, like Greg had given an example for, other things are lighting, LED lighting systems, very standard practices to reduce energy costs. And so those are all figured into that even before the work or the contract commences.
Right. And Joe, that's not to say we won't do we won't do solar someday or heat pumps or those things, but they would come to the board, I think, apart from some of these contracts, which are more straightforward operating costs that we're talking about, as opposed to wind and solar and that kind of thing.
Okay, and Greg, but just say the shower head example you use. Say we brought 500 of them or 1,000 as example, and they don't work for some reason, or there are problems with them. Now we can't get the cost savings to get the money back to keep our word on the loan. I'm not saying that will happen, and I understand that you said we're not going to use the far-reaching ones, but this is a Murphy's Law situation. We're talking about pieces and parts and things that possibly, could happen, that delay, might have to have things replaced. You know how and in public housing, things get a lot of wear and tear on a daily basis. And
hey, everybody, can I offer some comments? It's Teresa Puccio, NYCHA Treasurer. I do get involved with this a little bit. Joe, what you're talking about a replacement cost, and we do factor that into these deals. But just to go back a little bit on the guarantee, I get involved with that because with the Section 30 HUD approval process, the ESCO guarantee that we're all referring to, it's where, let me back up a moment. At the beginning of the process, there's an audit that's done by the ESCO, the Energy Services Company, and they analyze all of the potential areas of savings with the energy conservation measures that are possible. Then the energy group packages it up and puts into the contract whatever they decide. The ESCO puts a guarantee on the potential savings, and every year that is, the savings are measured, and there could be periods where there's more savings than estimated and less savings, and at a certain period of time, if there is a shortfall, I'm not sure if it's after a couple of years, it's probably not 1 year, but let's say 5 years. If there is accumulated shortfall, the ESCO must pay up. That's what their guarantee contract is for. And I get involved because we have that guarantee is actually one of the things that we have to pledge up to our bank that provides the EPC lease to us, and HUD has to approve that. So that's what's guaranteed, these savings. And the Energy Services Company is the one that the ESCO, and there's Amoresco, that's one of them, and it's Constellation. Thank you, Jason. And so that's what they must pay up if there's a shortfall of energy savings. I hope that's helpful.
It's helpful. So just going forward, when they put this package together, there should be some little disclaimer of risk management to possibly to concur what you just stated, that will be reimbursed or something, because there is an expectation if ESCO is going to pay us back, that there's a possibility that something might not go as planned. So you cannot guarantee that. That was a strong word to use. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
You confirmed that by what she just said. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but when you say that and then you turn around and say, well, if there's some sort in 5 years if something goes wrong, ESCO is going to offset the cost. If I understood you correctly, that means we could not actually guarantee the initial thing that we're trying to do. That's all I'm saying. When we use words like that at this level, it's just very, to me, it's very cautionary. That's all I'm saying. It kind of surprised
I
me.
have a further question though. Doesn't that mean that the ESCO has the responsibility to size the savings with those factors considered?
She didn't say that though.
Chair,
No, I'm asking the question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Chair,
I'm asking
Chair,
the question. Yeah.
Chair, that is correct. And I mean, Steve can corroborate. I mean, the ESCOs, when they do their energy audits, are
Right.
conservative. They're not going to
Right.
overpromise. And the term guarantee, that refers to an actual document from the ESCO that bears that designation. And
Right.
so NYCHA, and Steve can confirm, I believe on one of the EPCs we've have in place, there was actually an overperformance that had additional savings, and NYCHA then repackaged that and went back to add additional energy conservation measures.
Yeah, I
But
just,
it,
no, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish.
no, so I mean, the board member is correct that, I mean, nothing in life is 100%, but the ESCO is conservative because they don't want to be on the hook.
Right.
For if it does not meet the specifications in the initial agreement.
Yeah. In other words, they're sizing this thing so that they're taking into account some of the factors, Joe, that you've mentioned.
Well, okay, that should have been initially said.
Yeah,
And
no, that's they're looking at this and saying, okay, I mean, I don't have their actual methodology, but
yeah,
they're
still okay.
allowing for some slack in this.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way.
To make it as simple as possible, where Steve likes, if I give Steve $10 to go get some cheese, and he says he's gonna make us grilled cheese sandwiches, and he guarantees he's gonna do it, and he leaves the cheese out and it gets spoiled, then nobody gets nothing to eat. I'm just making it simple. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying. And the initial word of guaranteed at this level is very, very concerning. That's all. You know, it's very concerning. That because so many moving parts, especially with clean energy, environmental stuff, because there's still a lot of adaptations being done to this, and that's why you know, I just had the question. But going forward, we'll be looking for some of these things in some type of. So I would be looking for something, some type of risk management statement in the paperwork or resolution stating what we just discussed here. That would be helpful, along like with the question you just asked. You asked the question that should have been somewhat addressed in the initial paperwork. We can move forward though. I'm done with it. It's okay.
No, okay, Joe, thanks. And thanks to everybody who's responding on this, because I realize it is a complicated set of connections here.
Okay, Steve, you may
Paula,
proceed.
see
Paula, I'm
Paula
sorry.
handed
Yeah,
up.
I just wanted to sort of enter into this conversation by saying our savings are guaranteed one way or another.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we are guaranteed.
Yeah, well, the
that
ESCO is making sure, Paula, that nobody's, look, because there's a loan involved in this and it's a bank deal, they're making sure that everything is sized appropriately, if I can use that word. And that includes making sure that they don't overpromise on the
Right.
savings. Yeah.
So, yeah, so we.
And the
we
staff
get it.
should correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but that's my take.
If I could
That's
just add,
a
this
good
is,
point.
if I could just add, this is not a correction, but just for everyone's awareness, I mean, the HUD's Energy Center is actively involved on the front end in improving NYCHA entering into the EPC. Because to the points that are being raised, they don't want PHAs overextending themselves and taking a loan that will not be able to be paid back based on the savings that come in. So there is a large amount of HUD involvement, review, and oversight on the front end, and that's a good thing because ultimately the PHAs get to capture the savings for a period of time, and that's one of the big incentives to encourage PHAs to pursue EPCs. That's my final point on that.
Okay, and like I said, going forward, in the Q&A or the paperwork, some of these things can be touched on. Yeah, okay, and I understand the process now. We've taken up a lot of time just explaining it. Greg asked a question, Chairman Russ, but going forward, if you see something like this and these little disclaimers or sidebar issues that, you know, what you just stated, okay, besides the guarantee, then me personally, I would understand it better, okay? And it seems like HUD is also involved. I mean, something just to say, you know, to give it more clarity as far as the guarantee statement that you made. That's all. I'm done with it. Okay. I mean, we see this in the beginning, then we can just move on. And if we have questions, thank you.
Thank you. Steve, proceed.
Thank you very much, Teresa and Jason, for your eloquent explanations and clarifications. I'm going to move on to board items number 10 through 12. Capital Projects Division seeks authorization to approve contract capacity increases on 3 of our IDIQ job order contracts for general construction. The majority of this work is going to be focused on our accelerated interior compactor program, as well as our ongoing obligations and expenditures. There are 3 contracts in this. One is for WDF, the other 2 are for Gemco electric contracts. Board item number 10 was WDF. The original contract amount was 15 million. We're asking for a increase of 10 million to the revised amount of $25 million. Board item number 11 is for contract GR1925098. This is Gemco Electric Contractors, Inc. The original contract amount was 15 million. Again, we're asking for a contract capacity of 10 million, puts us at a revised 25 million. And the last item is board item 12, contract GR1925099 to Gemco Electric Contractors, Inc. The original contract amount was 15 million. We're asking for a revised amount of 10 million for a total revised amount of 25 million. If there are no further questions on Capital Projects Division's items, thank you very much for your time and wishing you all a happy new year.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Next, items 13 and 14. Anika.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anika Lescott, and I'm the EVP and Chief Financial Officer of NYCHA. I'm here to present items 13, and 14, which are the capital and operating plans respectively. I have a presentation that is on the screen, and I will just sort of walk you all through it. And our chair is going to join me to help answer any questions and provide additional commentary. Next slide. So very quickly, the agenda for today, we'll talk through the various pieces of the operating plan. We'll start by talking about our 2021 year-end reforecast, the rent collection trends that we've been seeing, our investments in the pillar areas against our rent collection, and then we will go into detail on the operating plan. We'll then talk you through the 5-year capital plan. Next slide. So the good news is that the NYCHA board adopted a 2021 budget that projected a $25 million year-end deficit. The good news is that we are projecting to balance the year, which means we will not have a deficit, and that's a significant improvement. We saw on a net basis an increase in our sources or our revenue of $107 million, owing from our federal operating subsidy, which provided an additional $101 million, as well as our city funds, which provide an additional $38 million, and other revenues of $57 million, which include items like our FEMA reimbursements, healthcare saving reimbursements, et cetera. On the uses side, we spent $82 million more than we projected overall. In terms of our salaries, we were able primarily to balance because we were carrying about 1,000 vacancies on the salary side. And then we spent 77 million more in overtime than was budgeted. And you should really see this as a balancing act for NYCHA. So we had to use that overtime in order to ensure that even though we had less staff, that our residents would not see decrease in services, and we would try to keep pace as best we can with resident needs and work orders and the like. So those high overtime costs were certainly necessary for us to continue our work. And then on the other than personnel services side, what we call OTPS, we saw savings of $47 million. Sorry, in terms of, and that's really on balance between less supply spending, less contract spending, however, more utility spending as more residents were home and using utilities, and more of a reimbursement from our Section 8 program. So again, overall, we do believe that we're going to end the year on balance. So we will come in with a 0 deficit. Next slide. So the chair alluded to this in his opening remarks, but it's really important that we share what we're seeing on our rent collection with you. So since the pandemic, we've seen rent collection decline about 30% if you're looking at March 2020 to October 2021. The red line that you see on top, that's what we needed to collect on a monthly basis. So in 2020, it was around $89 million on average per month, and in 2021, it's around $87 million on average per month. And you see that our rent collection, which are those gray bars, are coming in much lower than what we actually need. So our rent collection reached its lowest point in October 2021, where we collected only $66 million. And at the time, our tenant receivables was $285 million total. We estimate that $190 million of that is owing to the pandemic. And that really means that that is the growth that we saw from March 2020 to October 2021. Our receivables increased by $190 million, just for context. Next question. I'm sorry, next slide. So interestingly, even though our rent collection has been decreasing, we have been spending more on an operating in terms of our operating investments in the HUD, SDNY agreement pillar areas. And so just for awareness, those are items like heating, elevators, pests and waste, mold, and our 3 compliance departments. So the orange line that you see is our cumulative rent collection rate for that entire year. So you can notice that in 2018, that rate was around 90%. And as of October 2021, our cumulative rent collection is only around 73%. The blue bars shows you our investments in the HUD agreement areas. So you can see that from 2018 to 2021, those investments were increasing pretty steadily, and in total by $162 million. So again, while we are seeing less revenue coming in from our rent, we are making a very concerted effort to increase our spending in the HUD agreement area so we can start to show real improvements. Next slide. So getting to our 2022 budget. So what you see on the left are our sources and our uses. And so just to give you a sense of what our process was, we received over 300 million in new needs requests, which when we tried to fund them all, produced a significant year-end deficit. We took an additional cut after many deliberations with the chair and the COO and tried to fund 170 million of those needs, and that still resulted in a 70 million year-end deficit. So the budget that we're presenting today only has 137 million in those new investments, primarily in our transformation plan and pillar areas. And what we did was really fund those critical items, and we'll go into detail on the next slide. But essentially, we are projecting a budget with a $35 million year-end deficit in 2022, similar to what we passed in 2021, and we're confident that we will be able to close that gap. So there are some items that are very important here on the uses side. The 2 items in yellow require HUD approval. So We require HUD to approve a $53 million rate reduction incentive waiver so that we can keep all of the savings that we see as our rates for our utilities go down. And we also are requiring HUD approval to use $80 million of escrowed RAD Pact proceeds. So these are funds that NYCHA has earned over the course of the various development deals, but are sitting in escrow and require HUD approval for us to be able to use them. These are different than the unrestricted developer fees from those deals, for example. We are certainly putting our own skin in the game as well. In bright green, you see that we are planning to make $100 million withdrawal from our unrestricted operating reserves for total sources of around $4.1 billion. On the uses side, as mentioned, we'll go through that in the next slide, but we are in total anticipating uses of $4.2 billion for a year-end deficit of around $35 million. And it's important to note that without additional revenues, NYCHA will not be able to continue this trend of increased spending. So we really do need to see more support from our various partners. Next slide. So as mentioned, we are adding $137 million to our baseline to fund critical SDNY HUD agreement pillar investments and to continue our implementation of the transformation plan. So the first three items that you see amount to $47 million, and those are for the transformation plan. Specifically, skilled trade staff to continue our rollout in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And that is to ensure that we are able to really make a dent in our work order backlog that you've heard so much about. In addition, we are planning to hire 200 staff at the properties for janitorial services. So these are your caretakers to make sure that our grounds are in better shape and that our buildings are cleaner. In addition, we are also providing more supplies, equipment, and contract for the properties. These are requests that the property managers made to us directly, much like they did last year, and we are funding 100% of what they asked us for. Item 4 and 5, fringe benefits. So our fringe rate is around 70%. So for every staff person you hire, you have to be prepared to pay, in addition to their salary, 70% on average of benefits like healthcare and dental and the like. So we're taking that into account. And in addition, we are budgeting for more overtime to ensure that we can continue to reduce our work order backlog and improve our responsiveness as an authority. The next set of items, 6 through 10, are specifically related to our agreement pillars. And it's $38 million total over the comprehensive modernization pilot, our heating investments, asbestos, lead, and mold, elevators, and pest and waste reduction. And this is in addition, of course, to any capital spending that you might see in these areas. So these are just what we need on the operating side. In addition, 11 and 12. So 11 is just fire watch for code compliance. So where our sprinkler systems or our fire suppression systems are not up to code, we have to ensure that there is a fire watch. And so we're budgeting an additional $8 million for those services and $13 million for everything else on net. So these might be increasing property insurance costs or increasing utility costs, the cost of our lease construction, et cetera. So all told, we're looking at $137 million of really critical investments to our budget. Next slide. So I mentioned at the top that we are taking $100 million out of our operating reserves to be able to even afford what we are showing you here on the operating side. And so we really are using all of our available revenue to close our budget gaps. And I wanted to make sure that we were transparent around what this means for NYCHA over the sort of long and short term. So in 2021, we already pledged as part of our 2021 adopted budget, 75 million of those unrestricted operating reserves coming both from our developer fees and also just general reserves that we have on hand. In 2022, you're seeing $100 million being taken out of that operating reserve, which leaves just 300, I'm sorry for the noise in the back, 330 million left in our operating reserves. And it's important to note that this is just over 1 month of our reserve. And so it really begs the point that we have to continue to get additional support to continue to make these investments. Next slide. So now I'm going to get just into our 5-year plan. So you see what this looks like overall. So 2022 coming in at a $35 million deficit. We intend to closely monitor our spending and implement any cost saving measures as necessary. Very much like what we did in 2021, we intend to come back to the board if we find that we will not be able to close that deficit and provide that update. In 2023 through 2026, you are seeing deficits in the out years, but I will say that this is a marked improvement from our prior year plan. So while there are deficits, we've been able to get those down significantly. Just for context, for any of you who were here last year, we were projecting a $300 million deficit in 2022. We've gotten that down to 35. And in 2023 in the out years, those deficits are also increasing. So just important to note that this is something that we continue to work on, and every year we intend to come back with an updated 5-year plan to show you our progress. Next slide. So now I'll quickly get into the capital. Next slide. So for our 5-year capital plan, this is what HUD requires of us, even though funds are only provided from HUD on an annual basis. We are showing a total of $8.1 billion over the next 5 years, with $3 billion of that being available in 2022. And it's important to note that this is, a small sort of dent in the 40 billion that we estimate that we need to really be able to address our capital needs backlog. So just, really key things on the federal side, we're assuming grants around $700 million will continue into the out years. Based on some of the bills that we're seeing from the federal government. Our city capital includes 1.7 of the 2.2 available for the HUD SDNY agreement, as well as 1.6 of other mayoral funds. And it's important to note that our city funds roll year to year. So whatever funds we do not spend will roll into the next year. On the state side, we've got 363 million left to be committed of the 400 million awarded by the state, and this is for our heating and elevator pipelines, which are well underway. And again, since January 2021, NYCHA has been spending an average of 73 million on our capital projects. So we do anticipate that we will make a significant dent here. Wanting to really focus on the role of prior funds, which is the funds that we NYCHA have right now in our coffers ready to spend, and in 2022, which is only a few short days away, to really show you what we have right now in 2022 that we can apply to our capital projects, while we are, of course, forward thinking for the next few years. Next slide. I know that these are big numbers, so we just wanted to take a step back and sort of tell you in more clear terms what this means for our residents and some of the improvements that you can expect to see. So when you're looking at, that $3 billion that we're anticipating in 2022 between prior funds and the new funds, these are some of the key things that we will be able to do. $773 million to upgrade our heating systems, $245 million for brickwork repairs and local law 11, $264 million for roof repairs, $53 million for CCTVs, intercoms, and fire alarms, and $205 million to support the replacement of our elevators. So this concludes my presentation. Happy to take questions from the board members.
Anika, in addition to your presentation, can you officially just introduce, present the items itself, 13 and 14?
Oh, sure. Happy to, Jackie. So I am submitting for authorization item 13, which is requested to approve the authority's 5-year capital budget plan for calendar years 2022 through 2026. And as mentioned, the total sources of funding is $8.1 billion. Item 14 is authorization to approve the authority's 5-year operating budget for calendar years 2022 through 2025. And I'm also submitting, Jackie, into the record the presentation.
Okay, thank you. It says 2026.
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Member Adams?
I'm sorry, 2026, correction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the question, well, one is the questions about the rents. If under the COVID umbrella of rent protection and stuff, an agency like NYCHA, we don't get some type of consideration, maybe not reimbursed, but some type of consideration because of COVID, if it's COVID related, that these rents are not being paid, or the of it, or something, you know, like a credit towards something we can use. I'm just asking, I don't know what the procedure would be.
No,
With the rent.
that's a great question, Board Member Adams, and thank you for asking that. So there is one program that the state has called the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which you've probably heard referred to as ERAP, which gives landlords like NYCHA, as well as private landlords, the opportunity to ask the state to be reimbursed for back rent owed by our tenants. We, NYCHA, were able to submit $102 million worth of requests through my team, and that covered over 26,000 households at NYCHA. Unfortunately, we have not received any funds from the state through that program to be able to pay back any of that rent, and NYCHA residents are ranked last in the state's priority order, which is passed in the state legislation. So we remain hopeful, but we don't anticipate that we will receive any of that money. We are also internally, though, working to, in a sort of working group, to try to figure out how we can help our tenants to deal with the back rents. And we are exploring all avenues, you know, potentially payment plans, helping them to get connected to other private or public sources like HRA that might be able to help them pay this rent. And also we're under an eviction moratorium currently. So we certainly are not looking to evict anyone for non-payment of rent. We're trying our best to work with our tenants and figure out how we can help them with this, because we do understand the impact that it has on them as well.
Okay, and my second was on the operating budget, in particular the overtime, because overtime is like the carrot that keeps the horse moving the cart a little longer. You were right on point what you said about it covering the services when you don't have a lot of people hired, and catching up on tickets and things of that, things of that nature. Because I'm seeing some of that. So since I live in these facilities, I can actually see the benefit of the overtime being helpful and beneficial, especially in heating, getting people to cover, things of that nature. So that was very spot on. And hopefully that won't be too impacted by it in the near future until we can get some more stability. It's very, very point on the way you explained it and how helpful it is.
Thank you, Board Member. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that part you were just spot on. Every aspect of that particular part, that's something I can personally relate to in talking to the people that work here, because it's a cause and effect thing. If they're paid to come in to do things, it helps us. And that's very beneficial. It's like on the weekends and things of that nature. So it's helpful. The rent thing you explained to me, so it seems it might be a little leeway there. And that's about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no additional questions. Thank you very much, Anika. And we will move on to item 15. Teresa.
Yes, Anika, thank you very much. That was a very informative presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Teresa Puccio, Treasurer at New York City Housing Authority. I'll be presenting item number 15. Item number 15 requests authorization to submit an application to HUD pursuant to HUD's Capital Fund Financing Program for the approval of the issuance of Capital Fund Program revenue bonds in the not to exceed amount of $410 million by New York City Housing Development Corp., NYC HDC, on behalf of the authority. The issuance will be called the Series 2022 bonds, and subject to HUD's approval of the application, execute the loan agreement between the authority, HDC, related parties, including selected trustee, and any ancillary documents, including those prescribed by the master indenture related to the issuance and repayment of the Capital Fund Program revenue bonds. The 2022 bond issuance is expected to be sized at $401.2 million in principal, with a not to exceed amount of $410 million. The new 2022 bonds will be issued for a term to maturity not to exceed 11 years. The new bonds will not be generating new money to be expended on developments, but rather will be issued in order to defease the outstanding NYCHDC Series 2013 bonds. For those who are not familiar with the term, defeasance is a financing tool by which funds are set aside or parked in escrow so that they are there to pay off the bonds on the optional redemption date. Defeasance is the label since the funds are being set aside for this purpose before the optional redemption date. The two primary objectives of the Series 2022 bond issuance are as follows. First, to lower the authority's annual debt service obligation. Due to the lower interest rates available in the current market, refunding the Series 2013 bonds will allow the authority to achieve an estimated $41.2 million in present value debt service, which can be reinvested in the authority to address critical needs of its residential properties and building systems. The new Series 2022 bonds will have a lower interest rate than the Series 2013 bonds that are being refunded. As the annual debt service obligation decreases, the authority will free up funds within its annual federal capital fund grant for additional repairs of properties and also for infrastructure improvements. The second objective is to eliminate the IRS private use activity limitation that is imposed on tax-exempt government bonds. Previously, the Series 2013 bonds were issued on a tax-exempt basis, but the Series 2022 bonds will be issued on a taxable basis and will not have the IRS private activity limitation that existed with the tax-exempt bonds. This will enable the authority to complete the necessary rental assistance demonstration, RAD, conversions as per the authority's annual plan. Essentially, this is a refinancing of our bond debt. The Series 2013 bonds were issued at 4.2, and the Series 2022 bonds will be issued at a true interest cost of 2.3. Therefore, it is recommended that members authorize the chair or his respective designee to submit an application to HUD pursuant to HUD CFFP for approval of the issuance of the 2022 bonds in the not to exceed amount of $410 million, and subject to HUD's approval of the application, execute the loan agreement and any ancillary documents related to the issuance and repayment of the loan from the proceeds of the 2022 bonds in accordance with the authority's bylaws, delegation record, and other applicable authority procedures and documents pursuant to the aforementioned terms and conditions of this board resolution and such other terms and conditions as the general counsel or general counsel's designee deems appropriate. Thank you. Any questions?
Teresa, it's Greg. I only had one. What's our annual savings? We think we're going to 3 million or 4 million?
Right. It can be about, bear with me, 3.4 million per year.
Okay.
However, it's because there's serial bonds and there's more bonds that will be maturing sooner than later. 3.4 million is a straight average. So there's 12 years remaining
Okay.
until the very last bond matures.
Thanks.
Okay. There are no additional questions. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Before we get to the approval voting, just a quick attendance check already. I know the chair is here. Vice Chair, you're still there.
Yes, I am.
Member Adams, you're still there.
Yeah. Yes.
Member Gavin is still there.
Yes.
And Member Gawob is still there, and Member Austin is still absent. Chair, 15 items were presented for board approval. May I have a motion to approve the 15 items?
Motion.
Vice Chair? Mhm.
Yes.
Seconded by?
Second by Gawab.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Thank you so much. Now, Chair, being that all matters before the board today have been addressed, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion.
Vice Chair, seconded by,
Gavin,
Second.
with huge thanks to the staff. I think just a magnificent work that we heard today. Thank you.
Absolutely.
seconded by Member Gavin. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. Thank you so much. The recorded end time is 12:14 p.m. Member Gowal, it was a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for your contributions to the authority, and best of luck in all of the additional future endeavors that I'm sure you will be undertaking.
Thank you so much, Madam
Yes,
Secretary.
Matt. Good luck in whatever endeavor you decide to take.
Okay.
A
Appreciate
lot
it.
of luck.
And thanks to everyone who's participated in all of these board meetings throughout the year. This is the very final one, so looking forward to 2022. The next board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 26, 2022 at 10 a.m. The annual schedule will be forthcoming for those of you who've been inquiring, but at least you know the January's meeting is on the 26th. Wishing you all a most blessed, happy, and prosperous new year, and continue to stay safe.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.